Welcome back to another strange and mysterious podcast. Whoop-dee. Yeah. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, G. Introduce yourself, sir.
Oh, I'm McVice.
The one and the only McVice.
Yeah.
If you need advice, that's the guy you talk to right there, right?
Actually, no, don't ask me for advice.
He's like, nah, I don't do that shit no more.
Oh no, don't. I mean, I'll give you advice. Probably not going to listen to me anyway, fuckers. No,
Hey, you're gonna be like this.
Yeah, no shit.
Hey, why didn't you drink that whole bottle of vodka?
Oh shit.
Hey, motherfuckers going pootie tang on us. Pootie,
Right?
motherfucking pootie tang.
Yep.
Which is my dad's favorite movie, by the way. Just throw that out there.
That is a funny movie, though, man.
Love me some
It's
pootie
silly,
tang.
but that was a funny movie.
One of my favorite parts of that movie is when the groupie is all up on him and they go to the room and she's like, Pootie, let me in, Pootie. You can't just leave a girl out here. And the fucking door opens up and he gives her a bowl of milk. Oh, that's my shit. I was like, Pootie, you pimp motherfucker right there. Pimp.
I have not watched Pootie Tang in so long, man.
Dang. Oh, yeah, man. That movie is fucking hilarious.
It was surprisingly hilarious because I remember watching the previews where I didn't really want to see it. Mm-hmm. And then one day it was like on TV or something. I watched it. I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious, man. You know?
JB Smoove killed that shit too, man. He was funny as hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole movie's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But tonight, have you ever heard Betty and Barney Hill incident with the UFO?
Oh yeah.
You've heard of that, right? So yeah. I was thinking we haven't talked about that. So our viewers may not know, about this. So I thought, well, let's do a show on it. What you think?
All right. Sounds cool to me. What else was interesting about it, if I remember right, unless I'm getting this couple mixed up with another one, wasn't the husband a black man and the wife a white woman?
Mm-hmm. Black men love pancake ass. He was like,
back in those days, like, whoa.
Hey, who gives a fuck about the alien? Black man, white woman?
Yeah.
Hell no. Fuck the aliens.
Right.
Hey, I was like, damn, okay, aliens is like, we just abducted her and him. Yeah. Who gives a shit about that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
Well, you know what's funny about that too, man, before we get into it? I remember hearing, because I used to watch like UFO shows in the 90s as a kid, stuff like that. That's probably when I first heard of it, but I don't think they depicted them like that, Mm-hmm. It wasn't until like 10 years ago I looked into it again, and then they showed the pictures of them and everything, and it's like, wait, what? I never
knew. It was more subtle, huh? All right, we's ready? Let's check it out.
This is the story of Betty and Barney Hill.
Daddy, just wake up. All right. That's all.
As Betty saw the strange lights in the night sky, she immediately thought it was a falling star. Barney, in a rational manner, assumed it was just a plane, but it didn't pass over them as a plane would. Instead, this light became bigger and bigger, almost appearing to move towards them. It seemed to be following them as they were driving down the highway. Betty, curious and slightly shaken, tells Barney to stop the car. They took this opportunity to walk their dog Delcy around a picnic area. They then returned to their car and continued driving home, only to notice when looking up that the light was still there. It was following them.
So we stopped the car to get out to look at it. And that's when it changed direction and started coming in towards us. Now that was at about the Lancaster area. And then it followed us for about 30 miles.
Whatever. And I want to live like this. Oh,
deadly silent, that is when Barney Hill had the realization that this was not a plane. As they got a closer look at this object following them, they could see it rotating. Then it suddenly descends. Barney slams on the brakes in the middle of the highway to witness an enormous, deadly silent craft hovering above their car, enveloping the view from their windscreen. There was no...
You know, during that time period, it must have been a trip for them to see something that large, silent, right? That must have not made any sense to them.
Right.
Right. And if they were like religious, they were like, well, what the fuck is this? Right. Is this God? Is this,
Sure.
a demon? Like, what is this? Right.
Yeah.
So that must have been crazy during their time. Because, like he was saying, I was waiting to hear a jet, and there it is just hovering.
Well, I mean, even think if it happened now, dude. I mean, yeah, we have smartphones and all this stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're driving on the road at night, you know. Just think about it back in those days, you know, it had to be creepier back then. It's still creepy now sometimes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And something like that happens,
Oh, hell no.
you'll be losing your crap, man. I don't know how many times I've been on the road at night by myself in the middle of nowhere, and like if something like that happened, like I'm a pretty tough guy, but something like that would just shake me bad, dude. I feel like, oh my God, no, like what is this? You know?
I know. Like, what do you do? Like, you know what I mean? Who do you call? Right? Like,
I know. You probably be. I mean, even with the cell phone in hand, I'd probably be terrified, man. Probably paralyzed from fear. You know.
hey, you'd be up there and you'd see a UFO, be like, oh fuck, who do I call? Gabe.
Yeah.
That's who I call. Reg, what are you doing? Dude, there's a UFO. I'll be right there, Reg.
You know.
Oh, that's nuts. All right, let's see what else they say.
No
Yeah.
mistaking what it was now.
I'm trying to maintain control so Betty cannot tell I am scared.
Damn.
God, I'm scared.
Barney, the
Yeah.
absolute opposite of what I would have done, i.e. run screaming like a little girl in the opposite direction, got out of his car and with his gun readied in his pocket, went in for a closer look.
And then I get out with the binoculars. And then there. And I look. And I look. And it's just over. And there it is up there. Oh, God,
As an awestruck Barney Hill looks up, he sees a large wraparound window on the craft. Pressed up against the window, there were 11 humanoid figures looking right back at him. They were wearing black clothing, slimming, and then one of the beings makes contact.
Hey, that little picture of the little creatures in the window are probably like,
I don't know, man. Dude.
hey, they're like, party, woo!
I was like to say, at least he had his wife there with him, man. Can you imagine that by yourself?
Oh, hell.
I know,
hey,
man.
but he was smart enough to take his pistol with him, right?
Oh yeah, of course. You know.
Hey, as much as that would help, if it would have helped at all, right?
I don't know.
Shit. All right, let's see what he says.
Yeah.
Picture, this leader is telling me something. He's telling you something. How? How is he getting it to you? I can see it in his face. What did he tell you? Stay there and keep looking.
As this message appeared in his mind, Barney was physically unable to draw his gun, and in absolute panic, the realization came over him that he and his wife were about to be taken.
On one side, it had a big picture window. And it had dividers in it. And as he's looking up at it, and he could see people standing in the windows looking down at him, and the craft began to descend, and he had the feeling they were trying to kidnap him.
Barney ran back towards the car as fast as he could, screaming to Betty. As he reached the vehicle, they both had a sudden drowsy feeling. The next thing they knew, they woke up in their car 35 miles further down the road.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. That is.
I want to point out that this was
and also, you know, if people don't know, some of this account is when they were hypnotized. So both Betty and Barney Hill got hypnotized, and they're recounting what they remember under hypnosis. So
Right.
regular couple. They had no history of erratic behavior, hallucinations. Barney Hill was a highly intelligent, pragmatic man. They're just not the sort of people who would have been the ones to make up an alien story. I am, to be clear. I'm that person, madly unstable. Upon returning home that night, the Hills couldn't remember what had happened. They had a fragmented memory. They knew something had happened, just they couldn't recall exactly what.
When we arrived home, we had many puzzles. Tops of Barney's shoes were scuffed. Our watches had stopped functioning. There were highly polished spots in the trunk of the car. But the biggest mystery of all was the fact that it had taken us 7 hours to drive 190 miles.
They were missing time. But not only that, they felt unclean. And Barney took this opportunity to inspect his genitals. I will leave that alone. Just know I had jokes. They could remember a strange light, but not much more. Exhausted, they fell asleep.
His eyes was planted, I see it. Oh, eyes.
After years of battling with these thoughts, the Hills sought alternative help. This is the part of the story that sends chills down my spine. The audio you've been hearing throughout this video is from hypnosis sessions performed with Dr. Benjamin Simon in 1964. This is where the couple was starting to put together the missing pieces of what happened that night.
He ran back to the car. We were speeding down the highway to avoid capture. And then later, they were standing in the middle of the road, blocking our way. This is what we saw when the car motor stalled out.
I see.
And they're separating and coming up towards us.
This is your view then of the UFO people from out your car window?
Right. Actually, there were 11.
And so instantly a limitation of hypnotherapy, which is commonly used in these alien abduction cases to recall memories, is the hypnotherapist can ask leading questions. They can almost put words or ideas in the participant's mind. And so it's a highly contested way of gaining information. Nevertheless, the audio you're about to hear, you will never forget.
I saw a group of men, and they were standing in the highway, and they came to the thing of me.
They now remembered that when Barney ran screaming towards the car, he managed to get in the car and they started to drive away, only for some type of force compels him to stop the car. Barney Hill, during these sessions, even managed to draw the beings that he saw. Come on, Barney, mate. I mean, I can hardly see and I draw like a 2-year-old, but I reckon I could knock out something better than that. A bit of cross-hatching or something. This is the first story of what has now become known as the grey alien.
They had large cranium and the chin was very small.
You may remember my video that shall not be named. The young people who say they saw the alien at their school, again, they were describing something very similar. A big head, greyish skin, large black eyes, small nose, a slit for a mouth, sexy.
The object was on the ground. I think it was the same when I was watching in the sky. There was a ramp and a door.
They took me and carried me up this ramp.
And a couple bit behind me. Into this body, and there's a bed on each side of him, and my eyes are open. The body's still asleep. He's walking and he's asleep.
I am only thinking of mental pictures. Eyes are closed, and I think I am going up. It's right incline, and my feet are not bumping on the road.
Don't be afraid. We're not going to harm you.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
right?
Okay.
We just kidnapped you.
Don't touch my ball.
You're cool. You're in good hands.
On that.
You get into the examining room. You're separated from Barney.
Hey, what is this? Allstate?
Dude. Yeah.
See, and that I don't know, like I kind of understand. Like it's kind of like when farmers herd up their animals, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you have to like get them and be a little more aggressive with them. you know,
Right.
but ultimately you're reshoeing them or whatever you're doing to help out the animals, right?
Right.
And so I think it's a matter of perception per se. And maybe like not understanding of pain that maybe we cause, the livestock. Maybe that's how they view us. Like they're not being overly, aggressive, but they're just doing it so they can do their experiments, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, a good explanation always helps out too. Like, hey, like I'm this and like I'm here to do experiments on you, man.
right? Can we have a
And there's
conversation?
like nothing you can do about it. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. Like, well, shit. Like, what the fuck?
Hey, you can mark no for the procedure, but we're still going to do the procedure.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you're right in a way, but communicating to like livestock, like cattle, not like I could talk to, that Braham there, be like, hey, hey man, I gotta reshoe you, buddy, or I gotta put some shots in you, man. He's like, oh, okay. I hate shots, but yeah, I know you do,
Hey, we can grab some water afterwards.
Yeah. Don't worry, man. I got a bunch of grass for you after this. You're gonna have a good meal tonight. Just you gotta get through this first, all right?
Yeah, let's just get this shit over with.
Yeah, no shit, man. It's like, because it is like the aliens or whatever. They're like, yeah, we're gonna do the like, are you gonna pay me? Like, are you gonna pay me after this or what?
Hey, this body's not for free, man. Come on,
Yeah, like I got a lot you bills here, boss. Like,
hey, you can take me to
do some
dinner first.
experiments. Like,
You give me a little
let's
buzz
work out
first.
a deal or
really,
something. How about that?
Usually they take me to dinner first. I don't know.
Yeah, something.
Oh,
Show some
that's crazy.
class. Yeah.
Right? Pigs.
God.
Into the second. They start to take me in the room.
Yeah, I was inside something, but I should not dare open my eyes.
He tells me to take off my dress. There's sort of in the middle
the aliens
of
are
the
free.
room.
Curved walls with a table in the center of the room. They were stripped of their clothes, samples of their hair was taken, nail clippings, skin scrapings, 6-inch long needles with wires inserted into their heads and limbs against their will.
And they examiner has a long needle in his hand. And I see the needle. And it's bigger than any needle I've ever seen.
Betty even had one of these needles inserted into her stomach.
Ugh.
What she form of pregnancy test. It was excruciatingly painful.
But he said he just wants to put it in my table. It's just a simple test. I tell him, no, it won't hurt. Don't do it. Don't do it. And even though it won't hurt.
Even the aliens
Sure enough, it
died.
did.
Shit.
Jeez.
As these invasive and painful medical tests were being performed, a leader stood watching, observing, documenting. After this ordeal was over, Betty was unexpectedly given the opportunity of a lifetime. She had the chance to talk with the leader.
And showed me the star map or where they were from. There it is.
Oh, okay. This is the map you drew.
Yep.
Now, what? This is amazing because how much did you know about astronomy?
Not a thing.
In a lot of these stories that I'm retelling, there's just a complete absence of objective evidence. But there's always some type of peculiarity that the participant can recall that's hard to dismiss.
It's something in the metal of the wall. But there was an opening. And he pulled down a map. The heavy lines were trade routes. The broken lines
were expeditions.
So this is the Zeta Reticuli star system. I direct you to my Bob Lazar video. This was a woman with no knowledge of astronomy, accurately drawing a star map based on what the leader had told her. After their traumatic and invasive ordeal, they were released from the craft to then wake up back in their car.
One thing that's interesting that like kind of strikes me is where they said the alien said that these are trade routes. So the question would be with who? Who are they trading
Exactly. Well, now, I mean, there's all kinds of questions asked too. Like, so why are you experimenting on us? That would be a question I would ask. Like what purpose do you need to experiment on us for? Like, what purpose does that serve?
That's interesting. I didn't know that part of the story. Interesting.
I neither, but yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
I went on TV. I was questioned by F. Lee Bailey. And then I sat down and had lie detector testing in front of the whole country. And I had very, very high ratings for honesty and truthfulness.
And so there's widespread critique of the story, for example, that they were just exhausted and delusional. There's also a critique that there was a TV show around the time that they undertook the hypnosis in 1964 called Outer Limits, which showed an alien very similar to the drawing that Barney drew a few weeks later. So perhaps people are suggesting he was influenced by that or just copying that. And whilst there is valid critique of their story, the Hills do, however, come across as quite sincere. And there is certainly something very raw about their emotions in those hypnotherapy sessions. Barney sadly died in 1969 at the young age of 46, whilst Betty died in 2004, having never remarried. Which leaves the question, what happened to Betty and Barney Hill on the night of September 19th, 1961?
So what do you think about this?
I mean, it's one of those very popular alien abduction cases. Like, if you're in the, alien abduction realm, you're going to hear about their case, Because I think it was the first documented one, wasn't it?
I think it was one of the first ones.
Yeah, Obviously, it wasn't the first, UFO encounter, but it was, the first widespread alien abduction encounter, I believe, in the United States, at least,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just another piece of information out there as we're trying to figure out, the truth. What the truth is at the end of the day, I have no idea,
Yeah, it's such an interesting story.
Yeah.
And part of it, which I think that they didn't really touch on, was for example, there was actually stains on her dress from when they used some type of chemical.
Yeah.
And I'll show you right here. Let's see if you can see here. Back it up. Might not be able to see it. Be able to see it though. Let's see.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, there is stains on the dress that are like discoloration that they couldn't explain why that would happen. Right.
Okay.
And they did some analysis on it and they couldn't figure out what it was. So there's some evidence, right, to kind of support what kind of happened to them. And that other part too about the whole map where she wasn't very privy to, astrology, right? Or astronomy, I should say. That's kind of interesting too, right?
It is,
And then the whole trading thing, that to me kind of blows my mind a little bit because that just brings up bigger questions, like you said, right? Like why do, experiments on us and who the fuck are you trading with?
Sure. I mean, there's all kinds of questions at the same time. I mean, I can't even imagine a situation like that. Maybe you're not going to be as cognitive as, you would be normally. That whole experience has to be so terrifying. And I don't know, but the fact that she talked with the leader, you almost wonder well, was her cognition back to where she was in a state to ask all kinds of questions? Because I think you and I would ask that crap to the questions of they were like, all right, let's sit down here. Like, I got so many questions right now. Like, you know, like,
What's in McDonald's
right.
secret sauce?
Yeah.
These
I
aliens
mean,
would be
nothing
like,
like that.
oh my God, these humans
Yeah.
are idiots.
I mean, I would start challenging them though. I'd be like, okay, you say you're from there and everything, but how do I know you're really from there? You know, like
Yeah.
how do I really know that? You know,
What did you find it interesting when Barney said that they were men?
Hmm. You know what? I didn't, but
I think
that's
that
a
is an
very interesting
interesting.
fact.
Now it could be that that's what he associated them to be,
Yeah,
or could it be our own, right?
hey man, because this is why I used to go deep into the whole UFO stuff, and lately I don't go into it as much because now I've come across evidence stating that aliens aren't quite what we think they are. That sometimes they are like genetic experiments. You understand in the conspiracy realm, they say the governments have technology that's like far advanced, like so ahead of us that we don't even understand. We know there's all kinds of black experiments and stuff going on that we have no idea about. So I've heard information like aliens aren't really from outer space and stuff like this. So it's just all I'm getting at is, who knows what these things really are.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know what the truth is at the end of the day. I really don't.
And are some of these, reports of these, crafts or creatures, are they
Yeah.
from another dimension,
I
not
know
outer
they
space,
could
right?
be, man. They could be. Then you go into the questions of what are dreams really. Like where are we when we're dreaming? Like, are we actually living in like some other alternate dimension? When we're dreaming, does that tie into these beings from other dimensions, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's a whole wealth of questions that you could think of
Yeah,
because
and
we don't know everything.
remember a couple months ago when the government was discussing about UFOs and they went up
Sure.
to the White House and stuff. One of the things, one of the questions that the senator brought up, I thought was interesting. He says,
Hmm.
"Are these things interdimensional?"
Yeah.
So that begs to say, okay, well, why is our government officials asking if they're interdimensional?
Interdimensional.
Because you have
Yeah.
to have different dimensions in order to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
Exactly.
then have that understanding, are they traveling within those dimensions, right?
Yeah. No,
So,
absolutely, man. There's so many questions asked. That's why I think no one should ever jump to any conclusion with when it comes to UFOs and aliens, right? Because there's so much. There's other like evidence out there that kind of points to another narrative. Like
Mhm.
about the alien or the UFO encounter that happened at what Bentwaters Air Force Base in England, like what in
Mhm.
the 80s, late 70s, whatever it was,
Yeah.
where the two like U.S. Air Force security forces personnel went up and like touched the UFO, and like the one guy like automatically like all these what hieroglyphics like went into his mind, and then like he found out that the alien was actually a human being from the future, and you know what I'm saying? It's like you got all
Mhm.
kinds of freaking stuff out there, man. You
And
have
disinformation agents that are purposely
and
flooding the UFO
it,
community with disinformation.
sure, and then you have stuff like guys who used to work at like, the Dulce underground base talking about a war with like the gray beings that they had down there and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I know one of them who described that battle vividly. He didn't say they were aliens from outer space at all. So
Mhm.
it's like, I don't know what the truth is, man. I really don't.
That's
And I don't
definitely
think we do
one.
either.
That's definitely one subject I would like to do one of our shows about is Dulce.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would
Dulce
definitely be.
is, yeah, it's interesting because Dulce, the whole underground basing, that's a bigger conspiracy. There's
Mhm.
much evidence out there about underground bases. So then you start asking a question like, what are they doing down there?
Yeah, they're not
Like
just making hamburgers
what's
down there.
yeah, and then you think about shows like Stranger Things, right?
Yeah.
Stranger Things kind of alluded to underground military bases, right? Like, so you saw, what was it, the end of season 2, I think, when Hooper was a prisoner in Russia, the Soviets had him, and they show a deep underground military base in the Soviet Union. And we all know they had the Demogorgon, whatever the hell you call that thing. They had those in their bases too, deep underground. It's just, I know, whatever. You can say whatever you want to say about that. I'm just saying it's interesting that in this show they show you stuff like this too, And I mean, that show alluded to like the Montauk Project and all kinds of the Monarch Project, all kinds of crap, stuff that actually happened in real life. Like they alluded to some of that stuff in season 1, and you know what I mean? And there's all kinds of conspiracy surrounding like underground bases and what's going on there. So I don't know. I'm just saying that whole show was playing around with dimensional travel and all this crap, right? The upside down. That's a whole nother dimension, So I mean, it's just interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
So then to tie it back to what the hell are these beings, I don't know.
Yeah, it just opens up more questions than we have answers for, right?
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's, supposedly the ancient Indians had Vimanas, which, some people describe them as flying saucers. And, now we're going into who knows what the ancient world actually looked like, we found evidence of like technology and stuff like that. So if they figured out how to make a flying apparatus that was like a saucer way back in the day in ancient India, who's to say that what these people are seeing flying around now aren't flown by the governments, by somebody's air force or whatever, by the rich, wealthy elite. I don't know, whoever, It's just so many branches to these topics here. And all I'm getting at is who knows what the truth is.